Nostalgia. The treasured moments of your past. At the root of what fuels nostalgia is pop culture. And we know that black culture is pop culture. And that's why we created Blackstalgia.
And everybody want to be black until it's time to be a...
Whoa, you gotta calm down, brother.
My bad.
Right,
But what Kelby said is true. Just like today, pop culture is heavily influenced by black culture.
This is where the Blackstalgia podcast steps in. We'll discuss throwback movies, prominent black figures, and key nostalgic moments in black culture.
The Blackstalgia podcast can be found on all your favorite podcast apps.
Now pause the podcast you're currently listening to and go subscribe.
Because we got that sauce. And if you don't got that sauce, you lost, bro.
You are listening to Any Given Sunday, a part of the Dead End Podcast Network. Please subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and all other podcasting services. Please make sure you check out Dead End Hip Hop, Dead End Sports, Dead End Gaming, Is the Mic Still On, Chris Platt's Strictly Hip Hop and Hoops Talk, and a host of other shows on our podcast network. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. You are listening to Any Given Sunday for Sunday, August 16th, 2020. I am your host, Manny Brown. What's up, everybody? Glad you guys are back with us. Hopefully you guys had a happy, safe, blessed week. Back for, I think now it's the fourth time in 2020. Our guy, one of our favorite guest on the podcast, Mr. Josh Rodriguez, podcast producer for The Uninterrupted. Hey, I got it right this time.
Yes, you got it right this time. All right.
podcast producer for The Uninterrupted, host of the Dime NBA podcast with Josh Rodriguez, one of the best NBA podcasts out. Mr. Josh Rodriguez, the hardest working man in podcasting. The floor is yours. Welcome back.
Manny, thanks for having me, man. I'm always love our discussions. There's a hidden episode with you and I out there that no one's going to ever hear, but it was a great one. It was a great one, people. You missed it.
Yes. Yeah.
But thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. Always
Absolutely.
coming on, talking about politics, current events, sports, everything. I feel like you and I
absolutely.
have similar minds, and it's always great to talk to you.
Absolutely, man. You know the feeling is likewise. So absolutely, you're in relief today. You're in out of the bullpen. Had a guest scheduled, lined up, and
bring in the righty, baby. Let's go.
Had a guest that we're really excited about. Couldn't make it on the show today, unfortunately. We'll get it situated. Of course, timing. Life gets in the way sometimes, but we'll definitely reconvene on that. And don't want to announce who it is because a lot of you are going to like this gentleman, this individual,
okay.
real deep. So
I'll ask you after the show.
For sure.
My name is Eduardo Rodriguez, so I was born to be a middle reliever. Just born to play baseball, born to be a pitcher.
Go ahead.
Just didn't work out.
Absolutely, man. But what's been going on with you, man? What's been new since the last time we talked?
Not much, man. I mean, the Dime is taking off a little bit. I'm really proud of where it's going. Recently got into the basketball charts on Apple Podcasts. And he was 175, but you know what? I don't give a damn. I saw my name on the charts, and that was dope.
Well deserved.
Thank you very much.
No, that's major, cool. Man. Don't undersell that. That's major. I mean, to come from where you come from, and to be one of the top 200 podcasts out. It's just in the basketball, especially. Yeah, that's dope, man.
Yeah, so I'm really proud of that. We're starting up a podcast called Stewie's World, which is a podcast for Brianna Stewart at Uninterrupted, WNBA player from the Seattle Storm, which is cool. Mm-hmm. And hopefully football season starts, because if it does, that means that I'm going to be employed for the whole football season because I'm going to be running a podcast called 17 Weeks. But, who knows what's going to happen with COVID.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see.
Yeah. How's the family? Everybody staying healthy? I know you're in New York visiting some fam. Everybody's good? Everybody's safe? Everybody's healthy?
Well, yeah, I had an uncle who passed from COVID. I think I addressed that last time I was on the podcast. Then I had another uncle who passed, not COVID related. So I just came back. My family just needed me. I felt like it just felt like the right time. Haven't touched base in a while. See some friends, get some things done in the studio, and just the timing felt right. So I'm happy to be home.
Yeah.
How's everything with you, man? Everything good?
Just living, man. Trying to survive. Every day, one day at a time. Trying to stay sane. Trying to survive. Trying to stay
cool.
It's crazy because it's So we were just talking offline, and so only me, right? Only in my infinite wisdom do I buy a home with no AC. Now, full disclosure, you guys know I live in Seattle, Washington. It doesn't get too hot out here. All right. One of the many things that the Pacific Northwest is known for, heat is not one of them. We have a very balanced, great summer, 75 to 85. Great weather, right? Sunny, beautiful days, outdoorsy weather, the whole nine, right? But we do have our times where it gets really hot, and today happens to be one of those days. Today is actually the second hottest day of the year, and it was 91, I believe, officially. And it's
it humid over there? Is it humid? It's like humid.
No, today it is. Today is actually humid. It's humid as fuck outside. Like I don't know why. It's just nasty, sticky outside. Usually doesn't get that humid here. You would think for as much as it rains here, it would be humid, but it doesn't. So it's not humid heat here, but today it is. So it's 91 and it's humid, and it's just uncomfortable. Like I'm sitting right now, and you could see. Look at this, my bald head just sweat glistening. I got the old school OG rag.
Yeah, man. For those of you who don't know, man. Manny's got that bald head and it's glistening. It looks beautiful.
It's glistening. Thank you. So I'm sorry. But see, this is the amount of commitment that I show you guys. You know what I mean? The listeners, man. I'm out here sweating my what off, talking to Josh, but all for the love of podcasting. So appreciate that. So if you guys, so you guys think about that the next time I tell you guys to go drop me a review on Apple. By the way, drop me a review, okay? 5 stars, please. So for sure, yeah.
Those reviews are important, people. Like, honestly,
yes, they
if
are.
you're listening to this and you haven't done it, just do it. You don't understand how much that helps podcasters.
Absolutely,
5 stars,
man.
Leave a review. It adds credibility. It lets you know that, it boosts our confidence, so we know we're not talking to a wall.
And don't be a dick. If you don't like my show, just don't listen to it. Don't go on here and leave some overly wordy zero radical left sports podcasters. Really, don't be a douche. If you don't like a show, just don't listen to it. I've ran across many a podcast that I did not like on all spectrums. I didn't stop and leave a freaking terrible review. I just don't listen to it. I don't support it. That's simple,
I don't understand people who give 1-star reviews on iTunes. Actually, I don't understand people who give anything less than a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And I don't understand people who dislike YouTube videos. Just move on. If you don't like it, right? What is the point? I mean, it could be the nicest thing, like fireman saves baby from fire and cures cancer, and there'll be 100.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I don't understand it, man. I don't understand why people go out of their way to just leave shitty reviews or shitty comments on people's YouTube pages. It's even I've had YouTube, and I'm a YouTube junkie, right?
Me too.
And I've seen literally just YouTube videos that it's just literally a guy on his phone with a handheld, no video. And even if it's a good half-hearted attempt to make a good content video, hey, this is a video about me showing people how to type on a keyboard. As long as the information's good, I'll hit it's not it's just I don't know. I just feels like it's a dickish thing. It's just dickish thing to do.
I agree 100%. We had the same views on everything. Confirmed.
But I'm sure, yeah, right. But I'm sure there's somebody out there that's well, their video quality is terrible, and compared to other YouTubers who actually put the work in,
they feel the vertical,
right? Yeah, right. I'm sure somebody will listen to this podcast and it's not ESPN quality. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not in an ESPN studio with billions of dollars.
Living room with no AC.
Right. With an internet that's going in and out for some reason. I guess I have a storm coming or something. I don't know, but. Yeah, it's weird. It's stupid how people just react to certain things like that. It's just so dumb. But I don't know. We went off on a tangent on YouTube likes and comments on. The moral of the story is, if you like the podcast, please drop a review on iTunes. It's important. It helps us get noticed. Also, go check out The Dime. Leave a comment, leave a like, and a recommendation on there as well. So please, of course. So where do you want to start, man? You want to start on the NBA, or do you want to start on the political stuff first?
Man, I don't know. I'm leaving it up to you. You're the host. I can go either way. I'm fired up about both. So,
let's start. Let's start positive. Let's start with the NBA, right?
Okay.
Let's start. Let's do that.
I love how you know it. The political talk is not going to be positive.
You already know. We're like this, so we know.
It's going to be a ranting session.
Yeah, well, that's why we gotta ease our way into that. We gotta ease our way into that.
Right.
So basketball. Last time we talked, there was not an NBA season as of yet. Mm-hmm. I think they already came up with the plans and the deal in place, but there was no basketball yet to be played. Obviously, weeks later, we're officially now heading into our postseason side of things. And well, before we get into kind of the playoffs and previewing everything and talking about specific players and situations like that, let's just talk about the overall experience in Orlando, the bubble. Strong success, moderate success, so. What's your thoughts overall on the bubble, the presentation, everything that you've seen over the last, 2.5, 3 weeks?
I mean, I think it's an A+. I think it's a strong success. I mean, anytime you create a bubble during a pandemic and nobody gets infected when you start the games, that's the most important thing. And to me, you have to give Adam Silver and you have to give the NBA and everybody they hired inside that bubble, all the Disney workers, all the sanitation workers, everybody gets a round of applause. That's amazing. What they were able to do to complete. And I mean, it's an 8-game season. Don't get me wrong. It's not like they're playing 82 games, but still, I think it's very impressive. Also carrying on the messages of social justice. I know that a lot of players were kind of concerned with how the NBA was going to do that. I like the fact they had Black Lives Matter across the court. You know, they did give them options to put things on the back of their jerseys, and I know it was limited, and I know there were things that maybe other players wanted to have on those jerseys, but just the simple fact that the NBA allowed them to do that, I thought it was a big step because you don't really see that in any sporting event or anything like that, and I thought that was really cool of the NBA. I think every player, you know, there's been plenty of interviews where they're asked basketball questions and they start talking about the cops who murdered Breonna Taylor. I mean, I think the players followed through on their word about continuing the social justice reform conversation. And I'm just really impressed with the NBA right now. I think they deserve nothing but a round of applause. And you can nitpick, you can have like small things that you didn't like, but at the end of the day, during a pandemic, during what's going on in the country as far as racial issues, I mean, I don't think I could have thought of a better outcome than what happened. You know, you had your small things like Jonathan Isaac and even Myers Leonard, but like even around them, like we may not agree with why they stood for the anthem, but the NBA players rallied around them. I think they were coherent in their arguments, even if I don't agree with it. You know what I mean? Someone like Myers Leonard who decided to stand because, you know, his brother was in the military and he said why, but you know, at the same time, I think it's important to note that Myers Leonard has been an advocate for Black Lives Matter and he has said things in the past. So it was just his decision to stand. And Jonathan Isaac, I mean, he has some right-wing views that I don't agree with, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, we're a country that has difference of opinions and not everyone's going to agree. And I think the NBA handled it well. I don't think any of the players chastised either one of them. And it was, I don't know, it was just nice to see. It was nice to see some type of unity.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And I have to say this, I have to get this off my chest. For all those people that were, you know, saying it's karma that Jonathan Isaac tore his ACL, that you guys are despicable. Don't, you know, listen, you don't have to agree with someone's political views or what they think. And I'm all for talking shit, bashing someone's political views, that sort of thing. But you know, you don't wish injury, you don't wish harm on anybody. That's not okay. The man's got a right to earn a living. He's got a right to. He's a basketball player. He's got a right to play basketball. And this is a type of injury that could limit your career. That's not okay. That's not cool. And we don't get anywhere by doing that. So
no, we don't. And to be fair, it was a fringe minority. I don't think a lot of people were doing that.
Right, but I did see a lot of it. I did.
No, I saw some of it.
I saw a lot of it on Twitter, and it's Twitter, so of course it's a quagmire on it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I didn't pay too much attention to it, but just for anybody out there that even just thought of participating in that, that's not cool. You know, at the end of the day, you don't agree with somebody, you can have an open debate, you can chastise somebody, you can call them names, but when you're wishing injury or bodily harm on somebody, that's not cool.
But I do like the fact that the players stood up for Isaac. You know what I mean? And you know, you saw in the NFL when Cap kneeled. You know, you had players who were against Cap kneeling coming out and being defiant about Cap and saying things about Kaepernick. Whereas, you know, the NBA, when there was a deferring opinion, the players didn't chastise Isaac. They didn't chastise Myers Leonard. They actually came to their defense and they said, "Hey, listen, they are allowed to do whatever they want, and we support them." And I think that's huge because I think that shows unity. And even though I may not agree with what Jonathan Isaac believes when he follows Ben Shapiro for freaking crying out loud, you know, it is his right to do what he wants and voice his opinion. And I don't think anyone deserves what he got. You know, that injury is serious, and I hope he gets better soon.
Right. And it just goes to and I know we've gone on a little bit of a tangent, but it just goes to the whole, you know, you want guys to have, you know, you want guys to use their platform. You want guys to speak up, but there's another side of that too. It's like, it can't just be when you agree with them. You have to be, for freedom of speech, we wanted guys to have their voices be heard. It goes both ways. So you may not agree with the sentiments, but you got to allow them to have that. Just the same way you agree with LeBron when he takes a stand on something, or CJ McCollum or whoever, right? You have to allow that to the Jonathan Isaacs of the world. The same. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to like it, but right. That's just the way it goes. But going back to your original point, though, I agree with you. I think the bubble, and you know me, I was kind of skeptical on the whole bubble situation. I was worried how it would look, and there's still some things about it that bother me. Well, I wouldn't say bother me, just minor nitpicks that I'm still haven't grown on me yet. But overall, the overall presentation has been good. I've gotten used to it. I still wish that we were in a normal situation watching normal playoff basketball, but it is what it is. I think it's been a resounding success for the NBA. Whoever deserves the credit, whoever came up with the idea and the logistics of everything and has implemented it, of course, Adam Silver, but, to all his staff, everybody involved, everybody that has made it the success that it has been, kudos to them, because it's so far so good. Yeah, so far so good.
Agreed.
Anything from the actual presentation, the virtual fans, the Black Lives Matter on the court, anything that you can nitpick, anything that bothers you, nothing that something that you wanted to see improved.
I'll nitpick one thing: the fans, man. I mean, come on! Like, everyone has different sized heads. If you lean to the left a little bit, you get cut off. It's just weird, and I can't imagine what it'd be like playing in that arena. It feels like I'm like a fish in a fishbowl, and just people are looking at me. It's got to be a little.
It's
awkward.
weird. It's weird.
It's really weird, and I get it. Like, a lot of these people who are in there watching it on the screen, they're family members of the players. So it would be cool, like, if you're a player, to see like your daughter or like your brother or your mother on the screen. I get that, but I don't know. That's the one thing that pretty much bothered me the whole time with the presentation. Honestly, though, outside of that, I like the Black Lives Matter across the court. I like the idea of whoever the home team was, having their graphics on the big screen and maybe, putting their logo on the court virtually through, through television. I think they did whatever they could do. The fans thing was just a little nitpick and a little too much for me. But at the end of the day, I mean, like I said, I give the NBA A+. What about you? What do you think?
I'm you know me, I'm a constant nitpicker. The virtual fans are weird. Get rid of them. They just serve no purpose in these games. It's so weird. It's just have cutouts like baseball has and stuff. Just, I get it. It was a good, like, in the conception of it, it was a good idea. Like, having virtual fans, I think it's cool.
Right.
But just the presentation of it, it looks weird. And then you could just see from the action to when the fans are looking at it, there's a delay. So it's weird. Guy hits a shot. Then all the fans are like, after the fact and stuff. It's just
when Melo hits three, like you see like 10 people.
He's by himself. He says, it's like and it's minor nitpicks. Obviously, I don't care if they keep them. I get there, but it does look weird. It does look weird. The virtual fans, but I a little bit more kind of differentiation. As far as like, and I know from a logistical standpoint, it probably is not easy, but home teams painting the court on the actual logo on the court. I know that's, again, small stuff. It's just small, minor things that I think, but it just as some differentiation, because it does seem kind of after like if you watch like 8 games in a day, it does kind of seem like it's just kind of the same generic thing over and over and over and over and over again. There's no real differentiation. So maybe, and I don't know how you do this. Again, I don't know, but maybe changing
the March Madness a little bit, right? Like a little bit.
Yeah, it does. It does. And that's one of my issues with March Madness is that sometimes but although I've gotten so used to it from a March Madness perspective that it doesn't bother me, but with the NBA, it does feel weird. It does feel weird. Like you're watching Lakers, Pelicans, and then you're watching Bulls, Knicks, or whatever, right? And it's just the same court, same look, same. Right. Besides the graphics showing the home team or whatever. But I agree with you, man. I think overall it's been a rounding success. Nothing that I can really nitpick on, or I can nitpick, but things that nothing too gross or bad that really stands out that I have to kind of point at that's that's too bad. Overall, I think it's been a success, and I've been surprised because again, I came in wanting to hate it, I came in wanting to bash it, and I cannot. It's been good. It's been good so far. So let's kind of get into these 8 games. These 8 games. Did you learn anything from these 8 games? Did you see something that we'll get to the contending teams and we'll get to the playoff teams, but just kind of overall the 8 games, anything surprise you from those 8 games throughout?
The Suns, they were a surprise. I think they kind of got a little bit of benefit with some teams resting some players, but still to go 8-0 is still very impressive. The fact they didn't make the playoffs is okay, but I think they kind of let the league know, we're a team of the future, especially if Booker and Ayton can stay healthy and stay together. The Lakers were a little lackluster than I thought they'd be, but at the same time, you kind of knew going into it that it's an 8-game scrimmage for them. You know what I mean? I think they're going to work on a few things, and I don't think they took it as seriously as other teams took it. You have the Grizzlies, the Blazers, the Pelicans, they're all fighting for their lives, and they're playing their tails off, but the Lakers can just chill. So I don't think we learned anything. I do think if we learned one thing, it's that the East is wide open. I think the Celtics look really good. I think the Raptors look really good. And I think the Bucks look kind of vulnerable. I think the Bucks are still probably the favorites to win the East. But there are a few teams. You could make the case for maybe 4 or 5 teams winning the East. And I'm looking forward to the second round and on when it comes to the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. The Suns were a bit of a surprise for me. I didn't expect them to look that good. Honestly, I don't watch a lot of Suns games. So
nobody, let's be honest.
Well, yeah, right. But the Suns were a pleasant surprise. Booker's just phenomenal. I think he kind of announced himself to the NBA world, like, I'm here. Yeah. I'm ready to take that mantle. The Suns look like they finally have some light at the end of the tunnel. It's been forever since that franchise has had any signs of life. So the Suns, and I think this is a good building block for them for the next year, going into next season, winning these 8 games. Now they have some sort of success. It's about building small steps, right? It's about building that base of success to kind of propel you into next year and the year after that. So I think the Suns have definitely done that. I'm surprised at the Pelicans that they just didn't really. After the NBA basically gave them the gift of God, right, of just including them in this playoff format, even though realistically you can make the case they really deserve it. For the Pelicans to really not take it that serious, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but I don't necessarily blame them because, again, like I said on my podcast last week, the Pelicans are playing for much bigger things. They're not playing for, the opportunity to get steamrolled by the Lakers in the first round. They're playing because they want to build a franchise that's going to have a chance to bank off the success of a once-in-a-lifetime prospect in Zion Williamson. So can you necessarily blame them for, taking it easy and not going all in?
Here's the thing, Zion got the amount of rest that he would have gotten if the season ended anyway. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And to me, it's like, I understand you want to rest. I understand you want to be careful, but you have a chance to make the playoffs. Like, you have a chance to get on the map. And, if you're Alvin Gentry, who got fired recently, you kind of got to be a little bit upset. It's like,
it should be, yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's the complete reason why he got fired. There's other reasons why, it looked like the team quit on him. And like, Zion was awful defensively this year, which is shocking because he was really good defensively at Duke and, his off the ball defense. And he just had a lot of mental lapses. And I think that had a lot to do why Gentry was let go. Just a team.
Alvin Gentry's not a big time NBA head coach.
I don't think
he's a solid head coach, but he's not a guy. He's not a guy that moves the needle from a coaching perspective.
But if like a JJ Redick, I'm a veteran. I've been in the playoffs every year. Like, it's kind of frustrating. You are kind of risking a lot of things going into a bubble during a pandemic to play basketball, and then your organization doesn't want to play this one person who can help you make the playoffs because they're scared of him getting hurt when he's actually healthy and has been resting the past 3 months. No, I get it. You're right. It is long term. They're thinking long term, and I could understand it if it was 3 months ago. But I don't know. As a fan, it's just disappointing because I know Zion's healthy, and it would have been nice to see him play.
No, I get it. I do get it. I do get the outrage. I do get the anger that some folks have. I think that they have a right to be. If you're a fan of basketball, you want to see Zion Williamson. You want to see him play. You want to see that team compete against the big, the best of the league, especially in the Western Conference. But I kind of took a different approach, and I looked at what David Griffin was doing because this is an issue. This is a thing coming from management and ownership. they're playing for bigger things. Now, you could agree with that. You could disagree. Now, you could say that maybe won't pay off in the long run. We'll see. But I think they just looked at. I don't think they wanted to come back. I don't think they wanted to come to the bubble.
Yeah, I mean, but then why even go to the bubble? Like, just forfeit. You know what I'm saying?
I think the NBA. I think the NBA basically strong armed them and just like, come on, we need Zion here. But I think if you gave everybody truth serum, I think you will find out that I think David Griffin would have loved it if the Pelicans just never got invited to the bubble. I think
that was the best case scenario.
His plan was we're gonna get Zion ready for year 2 and beyond, and hopefully build this team from the ground up to be a championship level contender. Now, you can disagree with that. You can say that that's bullshit. That's not going to work or whatever. Whatever your point may be, and you may be right if you're a critic of that premise. But that's what they thought, and who am I to say that they're wrong? I mean, obviously, we won't know until we actually know, right? But I'm split on it because I get the anger and I get the vitriol, but I also get the Pelicans' perspective that
I do too.
We're not playing 8 games to get steamrolled by the Lakers in the first round. Yeah, like what are we accomplishing with that, right? So I get it, I really do. But those are the 2 things that really kind of surprised me. Nothing else really kind of surprised me at all. I mean, I knew the Lakers were going to take it easy, especially with the Rondo injury, Avery Bradley, getting hurt. I think the Lakers had a lot of things to figure out. So I don't think they went into this bubble thinking, okay, we're going to go balls to the wall to try to win all 8 games. I think they understand in a similar vein. They're playing for something bigger. They're not playing for bubble MVPs. They're playing for a championship. So, and typical Laker fashion, right? They would have played hard for these 8 games, won 5 of them, and the final game, LeBron twists an ankle or AD, sneezes the wrong way and he's out for the postseason. I mean, look at the Rockets. The Rockets right now are facing that similar situation with Russell Westbrook, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But if you're a team and that's why I was kind of, in a way, that's why I was kind of anti playing these 8 games. I mean, I understood it from a scrimmage perspective, trying to get the players ready. But from another perspective, I was like, the players are pretty much set. Like, to me, playing 8 games and then risking these guys getting hurt, that's why I wasn't in favor of it. I was just like, and you see part of that now. You're going to have teams that are going to, maybe played in this 8 games and could have got a guy hurt. Maybe Russell Westbrook, who knows? Maybe if they start the playoffs and don't play these 8 games, maybe Russell Westbrook's available in the first round. Who knows? Now, obviously, we don't know that for sure, right? Yeah, right. But I think that you have to definitely look at that and say, okay, maybe not playing, and Russell Westbrook goes balls to the wall every single play, every single possession, every single game. So who knows? Maybe playing these 8 games exasperated that issue. That would have, and it could have happened anyway, but you just don't know, right? So yeah, I'm not surprised that the Lakers, the Clippers, even the Bucks kind of took their foot off their gas a little bit with these 8 games, used it as kind of basically a pseudo, summer camp, summer practice. Essentially.
It was summer ball. It really was
summer ball. Right. Yeah. So, all right. So let's get into it. I mean, the matchups are set. Playoffs start officially tomorrow. What is in both sides of the bracket? What's a playoff matchup that you're really looking forward to?
Well, on the West, I think the Thunder Rockets series is very intriguing. I have the Thunder winning it in 6. I just don't like the Rockets small ball idea. I think the Thunder are a complete team. I think Steven Adams is going to beat the Rockets up on the board. And I also think that a lot of teams fall into the trap of playing against the Rockets and forcing the ball down low, and it ends up messing up their offense. But I don't see the Thunder doing that because I think Chris Paul's smarter than that. And I think Steven Adams doesn't have an ego where he's going to be calling for the basketball like that. I think it's going to pretty much be a 3-point contest. And every time the Thunder miss, there's going to be a huge chance that Steven Adams is going to be there cleaning up an offensive rebound and putting it back in for 2. I just can't see a situation where Russ comes back, first of all, comes back healthy and plays well enough to basically beat this Thunder team. I think the Thunder are very underrated, very underappreciated, and I have them at 6. And I think it's probably going to be the most entertaining matchup in the first round.
What about in the East? Any matchups that you're really excited about?
Heat Pacers, I would say. If this was a normal year or any other year, I think I would have said Sixers Celtics, but the Sixers are just on such a downward spiral that I don't even really want to watch that series. I think it's just going to be the Sixers imploding the whole time. And this is coming from someone who picked the Sixers to go to the finals preseason. It's just
we've talked about it. Yeah.
They turned And you also, shout out to you, by the way, because you called the Celtics on my podcast when you were on.
I did, and I told you about that, and we had a whole dissertation about the Sixers, right? I just like that franchise. Just they got too much credit early, man. They got too much credit early.
Yep.
You know, people were printing finals tickets 2 years ago, and that franchise hadn't done anything. And I think they kind of got sucked into that. And they've made some just terrible moves, like Al Horford. I just still don't understand that move. Everything that they've done, it just seems like everything that they've tried to do has not worked out. Everything from Markelle Fultz to on down the line, right? It just has been an utter disaster for that franchise. And I just don't know. I don't know where they go from here. I mean, I think they're really at a crossroads. They're going to have to make a decision this summer. I think they're going to. Wow, this fall, really? They're going to have to make a decision? It's weird to say that. This fall, they're going to have to make a decision. I think they're going to have to decide if it's Embiid or if it's Simmons, because those two can't play together. I've gotten to that point now.
You got to that point? I'm not sure if I'm at that point yet. I think a lot of it has to do with Brett Brown not being able to devise a plan for them to work together. I think you could find a way. I really do think you can find a way.
It's easy to blame Brett Brown.
I know it is, but you owe it to your fans and to that franchise. You have two. I mean, I don't know if I would say generational, but you have two really good talents, Hall of Fame caliber talents in Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. You got to try to make it work. If that means getting another coach just to be sure that it can't work, get that other coach, give it another year. That's where I'm at right now. I understand that you can't blame the coach on everything, and I'm not really someone who's an advocate for firing coaches because I feel like the players play the game. And you can't blame a coach if they're not making shots and doing certain things. But at the end of the day, there's got to be a way. I find it really hard to believe that these two cannot really work together. I don't think their games clash that much or as much as people say. A lot of it does hone on the fact that Ben Simmons hasn't developed a consistent jump shot. Hopefully he takes this fall very seriously and works on that and develops confidence to take that shot, because I think that would help tremendously with the spacing on the floor. But I don't know. You can't just give up right now. They're too young. They're too dynamic. I wouldn't give up if I'm a Sixers fan or Sixers front office manager. I definitely
get it. I get where you're coming from, and obviously as a fan of a team that had two once upon a time had two just dynamic, talented guys, the thought of giving up on two young guys early is definitely something that I don't necessarily ascribe to. That being said, there's I'm a look and feel guy, and it just doesn't look and feel like it's going to work with those two. Yeah. I think it's going to come down to you're going to have to make a decision now. And I'm also looking at it from the standpoint of Ben Simmons is a guy that has a lot of injury issues, as well as Embiid. So at one point, do you hang on too long where now you're getting diminishing returns for trading these guys that are often injured, right? So I think that you might want to trade now while there's still some high value, specifically in Ben Simmons. The most frustrating part to me about it, and folks will always point to Ben Simmons, right? Oh, he hasn't developed a jumper. Oh, he hasn't done this. Oh, and no argument, right? I think Embiid shares some blame here too. He just has not take. He just has, but I only say that because I feel like a lot of people always go to the Ben Simmons angle because that's the easier angle to look at. But 1,000%. But Embiid has not taken that step as a franchise leader. He doesn't have those leadership. I said it on a podcast that I was featured in this past week that Embiid kind of reminds me of the talk around Embiid kind of reminds me around a young Shaq where. There was questions about Shaq's leadership and motivation and maturity. When he got to the Lakers, was he just going to LA to make movies or to actually try to win championships? But I thought about that. I'm like, Embiid really reminds me of Dwight Howard. He just has that personality where you just wonder if he wants to be great. I think Embiid is more concerned with being a troll on Twitter and being a Twitter personality than being great. And that's the thing that I worry about with Embiid. Just he's never gotten himself in the shape that I think he needs for his body. He doesn't. He's such a frustrating player to watch because he could literally be the most dominating force in basketball, and he just doesn't.
He could be the best. He could be the best big we've seen since Hakeem Olajuwon if he wanted to.
Absolutely.
And Shaq. I'm sorry, I don't mean to disrespect Shaq like that. He just reminds me of Hakeem with his footwork.
But that goes without saying, right? Shaq.
Yeah.
But I get your sentiment, right? Like you could be that, and it's just.
Yeah,
it's just not there, and it's
get it.
Very frustrating. And that has nothing to do with Ben Simmons. That has nothing to do with Brett Brown. To me, that has everything to do with Joel Embiid. That's an attitude. Yeah, that's not coachable. That's an attitude and a maturity type of thing that I think he just doesn't have. And that's a problem. On top of the fact that he's always injured. On top of the fact that you just don't know. I mean, that's a guy that you're investing $180 million to, and he question mark from a health perspective. And then you got Ben Simmons, who's just a total enigma. You just don't know what you're getting with him. I mean, you watch him and you see the talent. It's there, but it's just the fact that you've been in the league for 3-4 years and you still don't even have. I don't care about practice. Bleacher Report. Stop showing me videos of Ben Simmons hitting a three in practice. I don't care. I don't care. Right? Like when he does it in a game, when he does it when it matters most, then I'll start relieving it. And the fact that you've been in the league for 3.5 years now, 3-4 years right now, and that you still don't even have a credible offensive game, like an actual jumper that you could just like, okay, we can lag off. We won't have to lag off of him because he can kill us.
At least
you just
mid-range.
don't have that. Exactly, just mid-range. Yeah. I'm not sitting here. You got to become Klay Thompson. I'm just saying, just be competent with the jump shot, right? Right. And he just hasn't done it. And yeah, I don't know, man. I'm down on the Sixers, man. I think.
No, and you have every right to be. Listen, I came around. I'm not dumb enough to pick him in this series. So.
we had an open debate. Remember when we had on your show? You were still.
You won. I'm conceding the argument. You won that argument. You won that debate.
I didn't like this. And then their moves in the offseason. Al Horford. I'll never understand that deal. I just don't understand that deal. What the thinking was, the logic behind that. I don't know. But going back to your original point, I think the East is definitely wide open. I think that I am looking forward to that Pacers Heat series I think those are two evenly matched teams. I think, can't you just see that series going 7? I have that series going 7. I have the Heat winning that in a close, tight-knit 7-game series. I think that's going to be the most competitive series in the entire first round. I think it's just going to be back and forth. I think that. I mean, I agree with you. I think the East is definitely wide open. I think the Celtics, when they're firing on all cylinders, I think the Celtics to me are the most talented team. I just think with Kemba, with Jason Tatum taking that next step, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, their coach. I mean, everything that the Celtics bring to the table when they're firing on all cylinders, I think the Celtics are the most talented team in the East. That's my opinion. Some people may disagree, but
they're a big man away. They're a big man away. That's it.
But I think they can get there now. I think they can get there.
I think they can win the East as constructed. I worry about them against a team like the Lakers with AG.
Yeah, I don't think they're winning a championship as currently constructed, but I think they can come out of the East for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you can make a case for 5 teams in the East. I think Bucks, Raptors, Heat, Celtics, and
that's where I'm going to disagree with you.
Yeah,
that's where I'm going to disagree with you. I'm not as high on the Heat as you are. Oh my God!
No, listen. I'm not high on. No, Justin is high on the Heat.
Yes,
that's not me. Justin is high. I think the Heat are good. I think you can make a case for them going to the finals. But out of all the teams in the East that I think they're my last. If that makes sense. If I'm going to do power rankings of teams to win the East, they are last on the power rankings of team who can win the East. I'll take the Celtics over me.
All love to Justin. Shout out to Justin. Obviously, go check out Above the Rim podcast. My boy, my brother, right there.
Great podcast, man.
But he's crazy. Like he has got the heat. He's got the heat. This Heat team being circa Heat of 2013. I'm just like, Justin, what are you? Are we watching the same team? Look, I like the Heat. I think they've got a good team. I think they got a roster of good young players that are all ready to take that next step. I like that team a lot. Spoelstra's a good coach, but I'm just not seeing it with them yet. And my main critique with the Heat is kind of the same critique I have with the Raptors. They have a good team, but who's the guy? Who's the guy late in a game, late in the possession that's going to take the shot? Is Jimmy Butler that guy?
I think he is that guy. You don't think he's that guy? I mean, he kind of showed it last year in Philadelphia, even though they lost that Game 7. I mean, he came up huge in that Game 7.
I know.
He was pretty good with the Bulls. I think he can be that guy. And I'm also a proponent in getting the best shot available. I don't really like this narrative that you have to go to a guy down the stretch. I'm not saying it doesn't help. I do think it helps that you can give the ball to somebody and they can create whatever. But at the same time, I mean, if you're a team like the Raptors and you consistently create offense off of your offense and ball movement in motion, what's wrong with that? You have a bunch of people who can shoot the three like Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet, and Siakam doesn't have to go isolation, jump shot or whatever it is to win the game. And I don't understand why there has to be a closer.
I think there has to be a closer. I agree. I get what you're saying. I do think, and maybe it's just an old antiquated mentality that I came up with, but I still think there's value in having that guy. I still think that the true championship level teams have to have that guy late in games, late in situations that when I need a shot, I have somebody that can come get me the basketball or can't give me a shot. You know what I mean? I know that I have that guy that you have that Kevin Durant. Down by one, late in the fourth quarter, 108 to 107, lights on bright, game 6, you're playing for your survival. I got that guy that's going to get me a shot or at least create a shot for other guys. With the Heat, with the Raptors, it's like, do we really have that guy? Do we really have that guy? Siakam could be that guy. Fred VanVleet could be that guy.
Yeah, but I trust the Heat and the Raptors to get a good shot. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, run a set where you can get a good. I'm comfortable with an open VanVleet 3. I'm comfortable with an open Jimmy Butler 3, and I think that gets taken for granted sometimes. I think a lot of times people would rather see a LeBron fadeaway with 2 people on him than a wide open 3-pointer from another teammate. And I don't know. I don't subscribe to that way of thinking, but I do understand it. Like, if you're a Boston Celtic fan, right, you're comfortable with having Jason Tatum with the ball, 10 seconds left, go get it. I understand that. I think there is value to that. I don't necessarily think that it's the end all be all because you don't have that, you can't win a championship.
Right. No, absolutely. And it's a philosophical difference, obviously. And yes, we'll see who's right and who's wrong. There have been teams throughout history that have proven that they can win that way. I'm always skeptical of teams like the Raptors. I would say the Raptors have a better shot to me than, say, the Heat, just because the Raptors have that championship DNA in them. They've won a championship. They know what it takes. All those guys have been indoctrinated with it. The problem I have with the Heat is they have a lot of young players who have never been in a big spot before. Are you really asking Duncan Robinson to take a big playoff shot? With Tyler Hero. Now, I'm not saying, Tyler Hero. I'm not saying these guys can't do it, but we've never seen it, and that's the thing, right? But I think, to me, I won't ascribe that the Heat. I will ascribe that the East is wide open. I just don't think it's as wide open as other people think. I still think that it's going to come down to one of 3 teams: the Bucks, the Raptors, or the Celtics. And you know where I stand on that. I think the Celtics have a chance. So
I think all 3 of them have a chance. I just think who's playing better at that moment. It really comes down to that.
Yeah. You mentioned the Bucks.
Raptors is going to be a hell of a series. In the second round, Celtics Raptors. Whew.
Yeah, that's I think all of them have the potential to be really good series. Like, I could see all of those series.
That might be my favorite series. That might be my favorite series of the playoffs. I'm really excited for that one.
You mentioned the Bucks earlier. You concerned with the Bucks, or you're kind of like, nothing to see?
I think the Bucks are definitely the favorites in the East. I think people got ahead of themselves. Like, we just had a conversation with how the East is open, and I think a lot of people translate that conversation to the Bucks are vulnerable and they're going to lose. I don't necessarily think that. I think the Bucks are the favorites, and I think they're favorites for a reason. I think they're the best team in the East for a reason. I just think there's a lot of question marks. I'm very interested to see how Giannis, reacts to basically what Nick Nurse did to him last year. Has he improved his outside game? Did he learn his lessons from the way Nick Nurse threw defenses at him? Did Mike Budenholzer learn any lessons? You know what I mean? He was kind of stubborn last year. He's going to make some changes. They are very good defensively. I think they're going to give a lot of teams fits with their length. They're really good. They're the best team in the East. They are. And it's just whether or not they evolved into that next step. And it's just going to be very interesting to see. Especially with no home court. You're going to have to play on a neutral court every game. You're not going to have that emotion of the home crowd behind you because you're going to have home court advantage in every series. So that kind of cancels that out.
Right.
It's going to be interesting. I don't know what to expect from the Bucks, which kind of makes me weary because they're the 1 seed. I don't know if I would bet on them, but I don't know if I'd bet against them either. I'm just going into it watching and as curious as everybody else.
I think the thing with the Bucks, it comes down to Giannis. Is he that guy? Is he that guy now that's going to take that next step where, this isn't a question of Giannis's greatness. We all know Giannis is great. He's potentially going to win a second MVP in a row, right? He's going to be in rarefied air. That being said, Giannis didn't play well in that Raptors series. Again, I said this before on the show. I never saw an NBA team basically employ an NFL-style defense, 36 bear, to stop a guy from scoring. But Giannis is, he's got to show it in a big spot.
Right.
This is why I'm so big.
Has to adjust too.
Right. But this is why I'm so big on that, you say, narrative of knowing deep down, late in the game, fourth quarter, you know you have that guy that can get you a shot. It's just it's a psychological thing for a team that you know 2 guys on him, 3 guys on him. Giannis is going to get it. Give me the ball, coach. Get the hell out of my way. Like,
yeah.
It's a psychological thing. And that's why people don't like it, because it's a psychological thing. You can't ascribe a stat to it. You can't break it down. It's just it's an intangibles thing, right? So I think Giannis has to show that he's taken that next step, that he's a guy that you trust with the ball late in the game to get you a shot, or at least get to the line. And now I think that was the problem a lot in that series last year, in that Eastern Conference series. Has he grown from that? We'll see. I think until we see it, I can't. That's my problem. I can't pick the Bucks because I haven't seen Giannis do it yet. And I know that seems like such a random opinion to have about a team that's, potentially and could be the best team in the NBA. But until I see Giannis take that step, it's hard for me to pick that team.
Yeah, and especially because this year seems like it's Groundhog's Day. It seems like the same year they had last year. It seems like the same exact team, and it's like, okay, we're going to get the same thing in the playoffs. We don't know. It's a huge question mark.
I would disagree with you on one point. I don't think they're the same team as last year, because I think at some point in the season, and it may be the first round, it may be the finals, and maybe that they never do this, right? But I think they're going to miss Malcolm Brogdon. I've said that was an underrated loss that team suffered that I don't think they really addressed. And because Malcolm Brogdon did a lot of things for that team that don't show up on a stat sheet, right? And I think they're going to miss him. And I think in the postseason, especially this type of postseason, I think that they will miss a guy like Malcolm Brogdon, a guy that kind of does a little bit of everything, can score, can defend, can be a playmaker for you, alleviates some of the stress off of Giannis and Middleton. Not trying to overrate Malcolm Brogdon, but I think he's a really good player that I think was perfect for that Bucks team that I don't think they really truly replaced. So we'll see. I don't think this is the same. I think they're a little bit Brook Lopez has not been as good as he was last year. That's another thing that concerns me. Look, I could if you ask me to bet money right now, would I bet on the Bucks? I still would. I think you have to, but
small money though. Small
money. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Small money. Absolutely. Yeah. So I guess to start with the East then. Bucks, Magic. No issue there.
Let's not even talk about the series. It's going to be 4-game sweep. Warm up.
Oh, before we break down the series, though, you brought up something that I wanted to talk about. In this landscape, right, the bubble, those intangibles, I think, are going to be very interesting to see how they play out, or the lack of intangibles. The biggest one being no home court, right? No real discernible difference between home courts. How do you think that's going to play out, either positively or negatively? Because I think it could have a lot of negative impacts on some of these teams. You see it in the playoffs where the difference in a series could be home court. Yeah. You're not going to have that this year. I think this year, it's going to be harder. In a way, I think it's going to be easier to evaluate, and I think it's going to be harder to evaluate. I think it's going to be easier because I think that you're just going to have my 5 guys versus your 5 guys, and let's see who's best, right? You're not going to have those intangibles of like home court advantage and what player plays well on this, on the road as opposed to at home, et cetera. But I think that that's going to hurt a team that, maybe a young team like Miami, they're not going to have that extra boost from being at home in those 3 playoff games, et cetera, right? How do you think that's going to impact either positively or negatively the lack of home court advantage in these playoffs?
I think you hit it right on the head. Teams like Miami are probably going to be affected. Like the Sixers have lost 2 games all year at home despite all their troubles. I think they're going to be negatively impacted, which is why I think they actually might get swept by the Celtics. I have them losing in 5. But, then you have teams like are even-keeled, like the Clippers. It doesn't matter if they're playing at the Staples Center or if they're playing at Madison Square Garden. They are literally the same team wherever they go. So you
could argue they don't have a home court anyway. So
that's true. Then you have players like LeBron, right? LeBron James came out and said that he misses the fans. He felt the absence of the fans. He's someone who might feed off of the fans to play better, and that's kind of interesting to me. Like, is it really going to affect LeBron James that there's not a crowd there cheering him on or even booing him? For that matter, I mean, I don't think it would affect him, but the fact that he came out and said that kind of, gives me a little bit of a pause. I don't think it's going to – I think when it comes down to it, the teams that advance, when you get to like semifinals or Eastern Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals, those teams are not going to be affected by it. You're going to see it a lot in the first round, and those teams are going to be out. It's only going to be like a first-round narrative. Outside of that, You're going to come to the better teams. It's not going to matter. Maybe the Bucks, because they were the 1 seed, and maybe they could have used that home court advantage in the Eastern Conference playoffs. But outside of them, I don't think it's going to matter.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you for the most part. I do think it will matter a little bit just because, again, like I said, now it's a more evenly matched product where you're going to have two teams, their 5 guys versus your 5 guys. Let's see who's best. Where you have those little intangibles in a normal setting where, maybe a guy plays better on the road than he does at home, that sort of thing. So who knows, right? Obviously, this is the first time we're seeing this, so a lot of things are going to be on display. But I'm going to be on the lookout for that. I'm going to be on the lookout to see how much the lack of a crowd and not being in a normal setting affects these playoffs. So far in 8 games, you can make the case that it hasn't made much of a difference. You can argue that, but I'm going to see in the playoffs. Obviously, playoff basketball is just such a different animal than
and also
basketball.
And interesting, I just thought of this too. Like Denver, they play in a high altitude. You got to go to Denver, and you got to be in shape to play. And the Nuggets they always had a good home court advantage because they're
same thing for Utah.
Yep, yeah. Utah as well. So I didn't think about that until right now. So it probably negatively affects both those teams who so happen to be playing each other in the first round.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting to watch. I think it really will be interesting to watch. But let's go back to breaking down the East, though. Obviously, Milwaukee and Orlando. No point in even breaking that down. That's at best a 5-game series, right?
Yes.
Indiana, Miami. I think you said Miami in
6.
6. I actually have the Heat in 7. I think that's got 7 games written all over it. Especially in this. 7. Yeah, if
Sabonis was playing, I'd say 7. And if Oladipo was a little more consistent, I'd be more comfortable with the Pacers. But I'm going to go with the Heat in 6.
I'm with you. I just think that I worry about those Heat players, those young Heat players, specifically Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson, Hero. First playoff action against a gritty team like Indiana. Say what you want to say about Indiana. They're a gritty team.
Every game's going to be great. Every game's
playoff tested. Yep. I think that's a 7-game series. Toronto so Toronto's the 2, right? So Toronto and Brooklyn. What do you think of that series?
I got the Raptors in 5. I think Karis LeVert's good enough to get 1 game in there, but then I think Nick Nurse devises this bear defense that you were talking about, and somehow, just the Nets, they don't have the firepower. They're just not good enough. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I agree with you. Although I'm a bit surprised about the Nets. The Nets have played better and harder than I thought they would in this bubble, and they were a pleasant surprise for me. Although it is shout out to Jacques Vaughn. Who knows if he keeps the job, but we'll see. Well, it shouldn't surprise me because it's a Kyrie Irving team, and Kyrie Irving teams tend to play better when he's not on the court. So, go figure, right? Go figure. Yep. And it pains me to take that shot at him. He's a Duke guy. You know me. I have a bias. I have a bias for Duke guys, right?
Yeah.
Kyrie, man. Oh, Jesus.
He's cool as a number 2. I'll say that. I think when Durant comes, I think he's going to be fine. I think he's a cool number 2. Just as your number 1.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that duo works, but that's a conversation for another day.
I'm not sure either. Yeah, it's another conversation, but it's kind of hard to deny the talent of that duo.
That's a lot of talent. That's a lot of talent, but just from a fit perspective, and then you got 2 volatile personalities that are really sensitive in that media market. I don't know.
Nobody cares about the Nets, though.
No, I know.
You know it, man. You're from there.
It's nobody cares. The Nets aren't even a blip on the radar.
Which is crazy. They have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, and nobody gives a damn about them.
No. They care about the Liberty more in New York than they care about the Nets. The Nets are just they care about the Liberty more. It's just dead ass. They just do probably. Okay, that's unfair. That's unfair. They care about the Nets probably a little bit more, but it's still. Yeah, just think about it. You guys think I'm being ridiculous? Think of that beautiful. The NBA, the Nets have probably the best arena in basketball.
So beautiful.
It's just beautiful arena, right? Barclays Center, and they were last in attendance in Brooklyn, the heart of Brooklyn. They were last in attendance.
Yeah, you could just walk around and accidentally go to a game.
Right, exactly. So that just tells you everything you need to know. So Nets, Raptors in 5?
Yes, 5.
Okay, I agree with you. So I'm with you so far. I think the only difference is you had Heat in 6. I have Heat in 7. And then Celtics and Sixers.
Celtics and Sixers. I have the Celtics in 5.
Celtics in 5.
You trying to give him 6?
I'm gonna give him 6.
Sweet?
I'm gonna give him 6. I'm gonna give him 6. I'm gonna give him 6.
Right.
I'm gonna give him 6. I'm gonna give him 6. Yeah, I think if this was a normal setting, I think the Celtics would have swept. I think the Celtics would have won in 5. But
see, I think if it was a normal setting, it might have went 6 because the Sixers are really good at home. I think this is something that kind of works against the Sixers.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're right. But I'll be nice. I'll be nice to the Sixers. I've killed them enough. I'll be nice to them here. I'll give them another game. They'll go in 6. They'll go in 6.
They're dead to me. They made me like a fool this year.
At least you didn't bet money on them.
True. That's true.
Oh, geez. Imagine the folks that went to Vegas were like, oh, yeah, trust the process. Trust the process, baby.
If I was in Vegas at the time where they had odds out for it, I probably would have bet the Sixers. Disgusting.
Okay, so let's move over to the Western Conference then. My team, the Lakers, number 1 seed. It's been a long road back. I know you disagree on the whole quote-unquote long road back, but be that as it may. Long road back. Hey, man, listen, you don't know the torture of having, being a fan of a Laker team and then having nights where you have Robert Sacre as your starting center.
Listen, I know how bad Robert Sacre is.
That's a huge fall-off.
I get it. But, I mean, you're a Mets fan, and if you heard a Yankee fan talk the way you talk about your Lakers, you know how hard you would flip out. So that's just the analogy I'm going to use. It's like a Yankee fan. Like, oh, all those years we didn't make the playoffs. It's like, you know what?
You guys do say that. You guys do say that. The fuck? Like, the whole Yankee. I love how the Yankees talk about their rebuild. Oh, we have this great. I'm like, let's be fair. Aroldis Chapman, that Aroldis Chapman trade. You guys had the Cubs by the balls. They needed a reliever, and they gave you this stud, like once in a generation prospect in Gleyber Torres. Let's be real. Like, that's the Yankees rebuild, and the Indians were desperate and gave you Andrew and basically gave you Clint Frazier for Andrew Miller. That's the Yankees rebuild,
and we can't even find room for Clint Frazier. Can't even find room for him, which is crazy.
Right. Yeah, but hey, you had to do Jeter's favor and give the Yankees a break or give the Marlins a break by taking Stanton. Listen, that's another podcast for another day. Lakers and Blazers. Interesting matchup, of course. Obviously, the Blazers, phenomenal job by the Blazers, going 7-1? Did they go 7-1 or 6-2?
6-2. Yeah,
6-2 in the bubble. Coming back from being 9th in the West to now being in the playoffs. Obviously, first of all, talk about that Blazers team. Just the job and the insane level that Damian Lillard is playing at right now.
Yeah, you got to give them credit. They had to win every single game that they won. They were in it a lot. I think every game was close. Every game.
Yeah, every game. Every time I looked up, they were in a close game.
Yeah. It's just you got to give it up to them. They came into the bubble for a reason, and they accomplished their goal. I mean, Damian Lillard is finally getting the due that he deserves. He outside of Steph Curry, I think he's the next best point guard in the league.
Oh, absolutely.
CJ McCollum's a bad man. Shout out to Nurk, who's back, healthy, looking good. And even Carmelo Anthony, I think the whole narrative Melo playing good in the bubble is a little overblown. I think he's been very erratic at best, but he's hit big shots when they needed him. That's what's most important. I mean, he's hit 3 of the biggest shots in the bubble for the Blazers, and you can't take that away from him. So timely hoops, being able to win these games down the stretch with the exception of maybe Dame missing those 2 free throws against the Clippers, but that might have been a godsend because what transpired after that with Paul George and Patrick Beverley talking crap made Dame go off. So, at the end of the day, you got to give him credit. Got to give Terry Stotts credit for keeping that team focused. And I think they deserve the 8th seed. And I think the right team got the 8th seed. I think the Grizzlies were a cool story, but I don't want to see the Grizzlies versus Lakers. I don't want to see the Pelicans versus Lakers. Give me the Blazers. They were a bona fide playoff team when they're healthy, and they deserve to be in there.
They're not a prototypical 8th seed. That's the thing that scares me most.
They're a 4 seed. They're like
in
a 4
normal
seed.
year when they're fully healthy, they're a 3 or 4 seed. I mean, they were a 3 seed last year, I believe, right? Or something like that.
Yeah,
they were a 3 or 4 seed last year. And so that team is better than an 8 seed, obviously. They just had a lot of injuries, a lot of turnover on that roster. But I will say this as a Laker fan. I'm confident, but I am scared as hell of the Blazers. That team scares the hell out of me because I think that's the team. That's the type of team that'll give us fits in the playoffs. Yeah. Like I think there's 2 teams in the West that I'm scared of. Obviously, the Clippers for obvious reasons, and the Blazers. And I've said that all year. I think if the Blazers are firing on all cylinders, I think they can give the Lakers problems. Because Lillard and McCollum in the backcourt, I think, are going to give the Lakers fits. And I think that this is a series where we're going to miss Avery Bradley. I think Avery Bradley would have been 1,000%. Huge in this series, especially not saying that Avery Bradley's going to stop Damian Lillard, but I think he would have been a pest to Damian Lillard. I think he would have bothered Damian Lillard. I mean, of course, bothering Damian Lillard, bothering him means that instead of going for like 50, he goes for like 35. But that's a difference in a series, right? But I think that the Lakers will miss Avery Bradley. I think too much. I think not enough was made of that Avery Bradley decision. And look, credit to Avery Bradley. He did what's best for himself and his family. So no issue there. But I think a lot of Laker fans were like, it's okay. It's Avery Bradley. Who cares? We'll just replace him. And I'm like, Avery Bradley is one of those guys that brings a lot of little things to a team that I don't think you can just easily replace. And yeah, I think they're going to miss him in this series. That being said, I think the Lakers in 6. I think the Lakers in 6. Yeah. I think I was just going to add, the only reason why I say 6 is because I think having to have basically the Blazers have been in the playoffs already. They've played 8 playoff games essentially. So I think that can have one of two effects. It could inspire you to keep going, or it can mentally drain you. And I think, I'm hoping anyway, that it's mentally drained them. That I think having to kind of basically play for their lives for 3 weeks, essentially, I think that now when they get into that series with the Lakers are going to be rested. They're going to be ready to go. This is the moment. This is the moment that they've been playing for. I think that the Blazers are going to be, maybe they're going to run out of gas a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little more optimistic with your Lakers. I got the Lakers at 5. I think a lot of the media is blowing up the Blazers and making them making them to be better than they really are. The Blazers, they can't play defense. They are horrific defensively. And at the end of the day, if you're going to ask me, well, who's going to get a stop at the end of the game? I know that the Blazers have Dame. I know they have CJ, but give me LeBron, give me AD, give me that Lakers defense. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league. They rotate very well. They have big guys who can switch on pick and rolls. I think Frank Vogel is a very smart defensive head coach. They're not going to let Dame kill them. I mean, don't get me wrong. You're not going to stop Damian Lillard, but they're going to do things like trap Dame. They're going to come up with defensive schemes to slow him down. You know, you guard Dame Lillard with your team. You don't necessarily guard Dame Lillard with one person. And don't get me wrong. Missing Avery Bradley, that doesn't help. It doesn't help at all. But there are ways you can slow Dame down and make players like a Gary Trent Jr. or Carmelo Anthony beat you. And they have shown that, yeah, they can beat you, but I'm not going to bank on the fact they're going to do it 4 times out of 7. And it's kind of tripping me out that a lot of media members are picking the Blazers to win this series. I think they're getting ahead of themselves. They're looking at Dame off. You see the 3-pointers, you see the offense, and it's kind of easy to get reeled in. But at the end of the day, I mean, they're barely beating a Sixers team without Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris. Right. They got smacked by the Celtics, and I know they came back in that game, but they got smacked. I mean, they just, I don't know how they came back. They just did. So to me, that was a bad loss. And they lost to a Clippers team that was resting Kawhi Leonard, Montrezl Harrell, and Paul George is on a minutes restriction. I think a lot of the reason why they got the 8 seed was, to be honest with you, their schedule was kind of light during the bubble. And they got in, and they deserve to get in. I think they are a playoff team, but they're not as good as people are making them out to be. I think Vogel has a defensive mind. He's going to devise a game plan to stop their offense, and they're just not going to be able to stop the Lakers. I know Lakers haven't been hitting the 3 ball, but come on, you got LeBron James, Anthony Davis. You're going to tell me they're not going to put the ball in the hoop? I just don't see it happening. I can't see the Blazers. You can convince me to go 6, but no more than 6. I got the Lakers in 5.
No, well, first of all, your lips to God's ears. I'm a Laker fan, so of course. You make some really good points, and I'm higher on the Blazers than you are. I just respect the hell out of that team. I respect the hell out of Dame and Lillard, or Dame and CJ. I've been so surprised how Nurkic has come back from that leg injury. I didn't expect it. Shout out to my boy Gary Trent, fellow Dookie.
Love him. He's one of my favorite players in the league right now, man.
Really, love him. Love him. And Melo, man, it's a good story. I know you have a love-hate relationship with Melo.
No, it's hate. It's not love-hate. I've never loved the dude.
I was trying to be nice, Josh. I was trying to be nice.
I'll give him props. It's a nice
Sunday.
redemption shirt.
It's Sunday. I'm trying to be a good Catholic, but a non-practicing Catholic. So you have a semi-love, mostly hate relationship with Carmelo, but Carmelo's a good story. It's a good story nonetheless.
No, it is.
The fact that this man sat out was out of the league for a year and a half. It's still mind-boggling to me. But that being said, yeah, I think they don't have enough to beat the Lakers, but I am concerned. I am worried. I think that this is the type of team. This is the type of a situation where you could see a playoff upset in the right scenario. So I'm
Game
not
one is very important. Game one is very important. The Blazers have to win game one.
I agree.
That's how I look at it.
Although, again, even this year, though, with the lack of travel, with the lack of home field advantage, can you really even say that even this year?
Yeah, because then you have to basically beat the Lakers in 6, right? Like you can't. You know what I'm saying? The Lakers could only win 2 more games. It becomes a thing where
I get it.
I just can't see it. You have to beat the Lakers as twice as much as they can beat you. I just can't see it happening.
True. I mean, that's why I'm so interested to see how this format plays into it, because again, this is different than you're used to seeing. Because in the past, you would say, yeah, they have to win game one, right? Because obviously you win game one. You know, if you lose game one, my daughter runs into the living room. If you lose game one, you know, you put yourself behind the 8 ball, especially on the road, right? But yeah, it's we'll see. OKC in Houston. What do you got in that series?
I got OKC in 6. I think Houston missing Westbrook is kind of big. Going small, I really don't think it's going to work out against OKC. I think I said earlier, you know, Steven Adams, I expect to have a big series, and I don't expect the Thunder to force feed him the ball and play into Houston's hands. I think a lot of his points are going to come off offensive rebounds. I think it's going to be a 3-point shooting contest, and every time the Thunder miss, there's a good chance that Steven Adams will be right there to pick up an offensive rebound and put it back in. So when the Thunder miss a 3-pointer, it might turn into 2, whereas the Rockets miss, they're not big enough to get the offensive rebound. And I think that's a big deal. I also think they're deeper than the Rockets. I like the Rockets team, but at the end of the day, when Russ is hurt, he may not play the first 2 games. You might be put up behind the 8 ball. That's a lot to ask for James Harden. So I think it could go 7. It wouldn't surprise me to go 7, but I like the Thunder better, and I think they take it in 6.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if Russ was healthy, I think I would pick the Rockets. Just because I think that OKC, I'm not all the way sold in OKC just yet. I think they're a good team. I think it's a good story. I think OKC is kind of the heat of the West, where a lot of people have these delusions that OKC is going to somehow make a finals run. I'm not there yet.
I don't see that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that are just sipping that coffee. I'm not going to go there. That being said, I think the loss of Russ is a little bit too hard for this team. You know, even if he only misses the first 2 games of the series, I mean, you could put yourself behind the 8 ball quickly. With Russ being missing those first 2 games. Yeah, you know me on the Rockets. I feel the same way about them that I feel about the Sixers. I just don't love the Rockets. To me, and every time I hear Daryl Morey speak, and it's not about China, I groan, because Daryl Morey thinks that he basically invented basketball. Like, how dare you question me? You know, like I'm James Naismith. I invented basketball. Like to me, the Rockets are one of those teams that they're just too cute for their own good. You know, we're just going to now play all 3, all 5 positions. We're just going to play small forwards and see where it goes. Right. I think they're trying to reinvent the wheel, and I don't think it's going to work.
Their window closed. The year CP3 hurt his hamstring was the year they should have won the championship. And the year after that, even when they had the Warriors again, they had a chance. KD went out. You had a chance. You had your opportunity. That was the window.
You took it right out of my mouth. Sports is about windows, man. Yep. You got a window and you got to capitalize on it, because if you don't, especially in the NBA, if you don't, you lose that opportunity. You just lose it. Yep. And I'll say it again to every Rockets fan that continues to hate on me on Twitter. You have the MVP of the league, and you had a 17-point lead in Game 6 and a 15-point lead in Game 7. Oh. Win the damn series. I don't want to hear about Chris Paul. I don't want to hear it. Win the series. The MVP. Period. Everybody always tells me James Harden is this great, iconic, once-in-a-lifetime player. You know what? He was the MVP of the league, and he had a 17-point lead on the road. Warriors couldn't do anything. lost. Okay, you give them a mulligan. It's game 6 on the road. Game 7, the Warriors. You remember how the Warriors started that game? Game 7 was just horrific. The Warriors started about as horrible as you could in a game 7. And then what happens? Third quarter, they make their third quarter comeback. The Rockets missed 27 straight 3-pointers. I mean, they just kept chucking them. I mean, at some point, did Mike D'Antoni not say, James, take it to the basket? Not one point in the entire game. Like, the Rockets, they're windows closed. Yeah, absolutely. So I think the Rockets, I think they'll be competitive. I will say 6-2. If Russ was healthy, I think it'd be a 7-game series, but I just don't know Russ's availability. I mean, is he guaranteed that he's only going to miss the first 2 games, or is it? Because I read somewhere he was on it. It's
open-ended.
It's open-ended? Okay. Because I had read that he's going to miss the first round. I mean, if he misses the first round, I
forget it.
I just, no. Yeah, I agree with you. Utah and Denver.
So for this, Connolly's out. Bogdanovich didn't even return to the bubble, and the Jazz, another team out. I mean, I swung and missed on my sleepers this year. I thought the Jazz were going to be really good this year.
You were high on the Jazz. Jeez,
man, I love the Jazz, and I can tell you why and everything. It just didn't work out the way it did. Connolly came in and struggled, man. Connolly just did not look good. I think a lot of it has to do with. Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with maybe his age, and on top of that, I just think Gobert, as good as he is defensively with protecting the rim, I think he kind of takes up a lot of space on offense, and it's kind of hard to work with him on the offensive end. And I think this is a bad matchup for the Jazz. You got Jokic, who can take Gobert out of the paint. What he does best is rim protect, and can just abuse him out there, take him off the dribble, make some plays, create something. It's just not a good look at all for the Jazz. I got the Nuggets in 5 in this one. No Connolly, no Bogdanovich. You're missing 2 starters. You're missing 2 starters, and then it's a bad matchup to begin with.
How long is Connolly out?
That I'm not sure. Probably, maybe. I think max the first 2 games. Definitely game 1. I don't know how he would have to quarantine when he comes back. So that's like 4 days, right? That you have to stay isolated.
I thought you had to do the 10 days if you left the bubble.
Is it 10 days? Yeah. So I mean, he's going to be. I think it's 10. It's like 4. Something like, I don't know what it is. I don't want to get caught saying the wrong thing. However, there's a good chance he misses the first round. Let's just leave it at that. So you got 2 starters missing. I don't know. It's the same team last year, basically, because the 2 free agents you added are both not here anymore. And now you have that relationship between Donovan Mitchell and Gobert that's kind of, contentious. Yeah. So I can't see the Jazz winning this series.
I can't see the Jazz winning this series, but I think this will be a more competitive series than you're giving it credit for. I respect the Jazz. Quinn Snyder, hell of a coach.
He is underrated.
Underrated head coach, really underrated. The Jazz even when you discount the Jazz, they just figure out ways, don't they? They just figure out a way to just be competitive.
They're always there.
They're just there. Yeah, they're just there. Joe Ingles, one of my favorite NBA players, just a guy that could just do a little bit of everything. I think the Jazz are going to be pesky. I think they're going to be competitive. I'm going to go with Denver in 7. I think the Jazz
you think it's
figure
7?
out I think the Jazz will figure out a way to be competitive, make it interesting for 6-7 games. I think Denver eventually. I think Denver should win in 5 or 6 games, but that's how much respect I have for the Jazz. That I think that they'll figure out a way to at least make it 7.
And when Denver should do something, they kind of don't.
And that's the problem with Denver. Yeah, and that's Denver's still to me a little bit of an enigma. Sometimes you love them, sometimes you don't. It's just there's still a little. I think they're still trying to figure out that team too. Just with their lineups and everything. I think
having Michael Porter Jr. coming around like that, the future for that team with Jokic,
Michael Porter, Candace Owens. Some of his views, Jesus Christ.
He's another one. He's
another one of those. He's another one of those. But Denver's interesting because they still, even though they've been in the playoffs now, they've had 2 back-to-back big-time years. They still play like a young team. I know they are, but they still make those young teams.
They feel young. They feel young. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So that's why I give Utah a chance, but I agree with you. I think Denver will ultimately win. And then Clippers, Dallas.
This is another one where I really don't understand the hype behind the Mavericks. I think the Clippers are the most well-rounded team in the league. They're my favorites to win title. And Dallas, to me, you have Luka and you have KP. Outside of that, come on. Listen, I know you had some crazy. I think they had the most efficient offense in league history this year, from what I read. However, in the playoffs, when the game slows down and you have a team like the Clippers who can lock down defensively, there's just no way I can see people like Finney Smith and Tim Hardaway Jr. Come on, like really, these guys are really gonna give the Clippers fits? No, I think they have a nice mismatch with KP. I think KP can give them fits because the Clippers don't really have a lot of size or anyone who can go out there and guard a big man like KP. But you can throw Kawhi on Luka and use team defense to kind of contain him. I think. And I said this on my podcast, I think a narrative might form after this series where it's like, oh, Luka wasn't ready. Like, there might be like this kind of false narrative that like Luka wasn't ready for the big times because they might get swept or lose in 5. And
he's a European player, so he's soft.
Yeah. And the reality of the situation will be that he was just playing a superior team with inferior, teammates, and it is what it is. But I think he might struggle a little bit just because he might have to do a little too much to try to win this series. He might shoot a low percentage, and I just can't see a way where the Mavericks even win more than one game. They're terrible defensively too. They're an awful defensive team. I think they're a team of the future. I just don't think they're a team of right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. The only thing that gives me caution is the Clippers. I think this series is more about the Clippers than it is about the Mavericks. I think the Clippers, to me, the Clippers worry me. There's just something off about that team that I haven't been able to pinpoint it all year. It's like they don't take the season seriously. That's how I felt. Like they were just kind of like going through the motions, which is kind of concerning. I kept saying, well, that's concerning. That also, it's hard. I haven't come up with a reasoning yet. They kind of obviously they're not this dysfunctional, but I think they remind me a little bit of the Celtics last year, where you just kind of kept waiting for them to take that next step, and it just never got there. And I think that Celtics team suffered from just having too much talent. And I think this is the same thing that you have with the Clippers, where I think they just have too much talent that I don't think that Doc Rivers knows really what to do with everybody and how the pieces just like sometimes you could just have too much talent. Like sometimes you just have too many B+, A+ guys. Like, and you just, how do you use this guy? How do you use that guy? And it just doesn't, to me, I still don't think Paul George and Kawhi Leonard fit.
Right.
I think it's an awkward fit. It still feels a lot like my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. I don't really think they complement each other because I think they play this. They're basically the same player. Yeah,
they're not a duo. They're just two teammates that are really talented.
Right. I don't love Paul George at the 4. I think that's an awkward fit. Again, there's just a lot of things about the Clippers that I don't love. And I just don't see how that again, I'm not going to – I think the Clippers will win in 6. I will say that. But I can see the Mavericks giving the Clippers more of a problem than I think you're giving them credit for, just because I don't trust the Clippers. I don't trust the Clippers' makeup. Let's just put it that way. And Carlisle's a hell of a coach, and you got to respect him, and you got to believe that Carlisle's going to devise a scheme to try to give the Clippers fits. And I don't think it's going to work, but we'll see. Yeah,
I think
and it's going to be just
huge series in order for that.
KP, he's the X factor. He's the X factor for that team because you know what Luka's going to give you. But if KP plays the way that he's able to play, I think the Mavericks have a shot. But who knows? Who knows? Yeah, that's it. That's the first round. I'm sure we can get into who's going to win. Conference semis and semifinals. So right now on August 16th, Sunday night. Who are your finals representatives?
I got the Clippers and Raptors.
Clippers and Raptors, huh? Okay. Yep. Clippers and Raptors.
I know that hurts your soul, man. I know it hurts your soul as a Laker fan. I'm sorry.
No offense, my brother. No offense. I'm just writing that down for just as a receipt. Clippers and
Hey, listen. I've been wrong. You are up right now in our debates. You're winning. You're winning in basketball opinions. So
listen, I'm a notoriously
so far.
I'm a notorious bad picker when it comes to the NBA playoffs. So don't everybody who listens knows I'm terrible with my predictions. So don't. For all we know, you could be right.
We'll see. What about you? What do you think?
Of course, I can't go against my Lakers, right? So I've got.
Is it objectively like is this objective or is this like hometown? I know you are objective.
I think the Clippers are more talented than the Lakers. I do. I do believe that. I think the Lakers. I think if you stack up rosters, I think it's hard to not say the Clippers have a better talented group than the Lakers. Are they a better team? No, they're not. I don't think the Clippers are a better team. Keyword team than the Lakers. I have been surprised that the Lakers all year have played with a level of camaraderie, a togetherness, a tightness, and that's credit to Frank Vogel. I didn't love the hire, but Frank Vogel has exceeded every bit of my expectations. He's figured it out. He's figured out how to get this team to play defense at a high level. Anthony Davis and LeBron James have fit in seamlessly, no issues at all. The only thing that does concern me, honestly, is LeBron's age. He is 35. There's a lot of miles on that tank.
Looks good though, man.
He does look good. Yeah. He's LeBron. He's a freak of nature. He was put on this. He literally was sculpted from God to play basketball. Like literally, that's just his purpose in life. Like LeBron would have never been a car salesman. He would have never been a freaking, insurance exec. Like he was put on earth to play basketball. Like that's just what he is, right? I'm a little worried about his age just because, at that age, a little tweak here, a little tweak there, those tweaks start coming a little bit faster than they did when you were 27, even when you were 32. But that being said, I think that when the Lakers are firing on all cylinders, when they're playing their best, I still believe wholeheartedly that the Lakers are the best team in the league. But we'll see. We'll see. So I'm going to pick the Lakers. And in the East, I got the Celtics. I think you're going to have a Lakers-Celtics NBA Finals. That's my
just
pick
like
right
old
now.
Times, man.
Watch it be Nuggets and freaking. Watch it be Nuggets and Heat. I'll make Justin happy. Watch it be Nuggets and Heat.
There are only two teams that could come out of the West, and that's both LA teams. Those are the only two teams I think could come in the West.
If you had to pick a sleeper, who would it be?
In the West?
Yeah.
Oh man. I don't even think there is one. If you want to be honest,
gun to your head. Gun to my head. Sleeper Rockets, and I don't even like them. Just off the simple fact of James Harden and Russell Westbrook getting hot, and I don't think it's I don't like them. I don't like the way they play. Yeah. But just based off the simple fact that James Harden is that good and Russell Westbrook can be that good, right? Maybe. My sleeper is Portland. Man. I think I know you don't like them. Here's why. I think if they beat the Lakers, let's just say somehow they beat the Lakers, right? They're going to get a lot of confidence. They beat the Lakers. And after that, I think they match up pretty well with everybody else. Like, I would love to see a Clippers a Blazers series. Oh, God, I would love to see that. I think the Clippers are way better, man. Way better team. I mean, or way more talent. But team. The Blazers are so bad defensively. I know. And maybe I'm too high on the Blazers. Here's the thing. That's totally acceptable too. If they were like a 6 seed, you know what I mean, where they got like the Nuggets in the first round, and then like you can convince me. But going against the Lakers in the first round, I just can't see it happening to begin with. So in my mind, they can't even get that far. I'm a proponent that I think that the lack of, again, travel, the lack of home court advantage, and maybe I'm making too much of this. We'll watch it be here next Friday, and we made too much of this, right? But I'm a proponent that I think that you might see some more upsets this year than you normally would, because again, you don't have those intangibles, the travel. The exact opposite. We'll see. I think the higher seeded teams are the better teams, and they're gonna win out because they are the better team. I think teams like the Blazers, they need to play at the Moda Center or Moda Center, whatever it's called. They need to play in Portland and get those games. They need games 3 and 4 in Portland with the home crowd behind them, and they're not going to ever get that. There's not going to be any type of momentum. So yeah, as my son walks in the living room, I'm sure he disagrees. No, we'll see. I see where you're coming from. We'll see. I can't wait. I'm actually excited. I'm excited for the playoffs. I'm excited. Me too. You can make a case for either side. I think that's what's most compelling about this is that you can come at it from both ways and make it legitimate cases on how lack of home court can affect the NBA playoffs. I think you and I just see it completely differently, which is fascinating. I think it's pretty cool. Yes, and I do think that this year you don't have a Warriors team that's just that prohibitive favorite. That I think it's I think it does create more interest, because I think you do have a wide open, as a whole, have a wide open spectrum where in years past it was like, okay, it's the Warriors and whoever comes out of the East, right? Or it's Warriors Cavs for the 17,000th time, right? Like now this year, you're just really completely wide open where you could see a team come out of nowhere, conceivably, right? We'll see if that actually happens, but yeah, man. No, we'll see. I'm excited. It all starts tomorrow, so we'll see, man. We'll definitely see. Let's get to the thing that we really wanted to talk about today.
Changing the world, baby. Let's do it.
Kamala Harris, Senator Kamala Harris, the junior senator from California. It's official. It is Biden Harris as the ticket. Kamala Harris is your official VP nominee. What are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts?
I'm sure you were just excited, right? I'm sure you just cheered loudly as the announcement came down on Tuesday. Or Wednesday, whenever the hell it came out. So
I think, a lot of times that you and I talk, we do discuss about, just the Democratic Party, whatever it is. But we've gotten to a discussion with how, the voters in both parties, on both spectrum, are just kind of ignorant to a lot of things that, go on in politics. And I think this is a prime example. I've been out protesting Black Lives Matter protests for 4 or 5 years now. And we've made some serious progress with defunding the police and allocating dollars within the communities. And, you would think that these people who vote in primaries, who support the Black Lives Matter movement, wouldn't want a vice president who doesn't support putting body cams on cops, who doesn't, you know what I mean? Who has truancy laws against poor mothers who can't send their kids to school. Like, this is the exact opposite of what we're fighting for, yet no one knows it. And it's kind of weird, it's her record's right there. You can Google Kamala Harris and you can see what she has done to the Black community. And I know she's a Black woman, and she's a smart Black woman, and she's a very well-spoken Black woman. But let's look at her record. We are fighting for racial justice. We are fighting for a certain thing. She is the antithesis of what we are fighting for. And just because she's a Black woman doesn't mean that she is for what we are fighting for. And I think we get, I don't use the word we, because even though I will be voting Democrat for the foreseeable future, because in my mind, the Republican Party is fucking batshit crazy. I don't understand how the Democratic base gets so fooled with simple symbolic gestures. And it's just really frustrating. It's really frustrating because I feel like if everybody knew what she was and the things that she did, there would be no hype around her, or Joe Biden for that matter.
Well, Josh, I have to break it to you. You're racist right now because you dare question Kamala Harris. So you're racist now. You're not down for the cause there. Your Latin privilege is your Latino privilege is showing there.
My Latino privilege. Yeah. And listen, and this is coming from someone, and I want to add to everyone who doesn't know me, like, I am going to be voting for the Biden Kamala Harris because I am taking the harm reductionist route for this election. But I can't fault someone for not voting for this ticket. Like, can I vote? Can I fault someone who's been a survivor of sexual assault for not voting for Joe Biden, who's been accused of rape by Tara Reade? You know what I mean? Liberals, progressive, has started the Me Too movement, and a lot of these liberals, once Joe Biden gets accused, it's like all of a sudden it's not believe women anymore. You know what I mean? And then that's the thing. Like, you got Republicans and I don't
Kamala Harris. I mean, who's out there front and center making what's his face life a living hell, and then she claims the ticket and Kavanaugh, and then it's like nothing to say, not one thing, not a single comment.
Come on,
no comment. Like, come on.
And these are movements that, like, I support the Me Too movement. I support the Black Lives Matter movement. But a lot of people in you have to realize that if you're a part of that movement and then you go and vote for Joe Biden in the primary, like, what are you saying? And it's just ammunition for the Republican Party to say, hey, look, they're hypocrites. And you know what? They're right. And that's the most frustrating thing, is that a lot of the Republicans who, like Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens and a lot of these talking heads who I loathe, like, I cannot stand them. And I think they are disingenuous actors. They don't argue from a point of honesty. But in this situation, it pains me to say that, like, they have a point. Like, here we are with the Me Too movement. Here we are with, Black Lives Matter. Yet the people who we had a chance to vote for candidates who support these type of things and will support the structural change that we want to see in America, and we just kind of bypass them because of the word socialist or because of a few snake emojis on Twitter. It's almost like, how are we this ill-informed? How do we let little things like this get in the way of what we're trying to accomplish? And how do we let symbolism like Kamala Harris being a Black woman be the end-all be-all? If I showed you her record without her name at the top, without her race or her gender, you would be appalled at what she did. Same with Joe Biden. Like, I don't understand how the Democratic base chose we didn't choose Kamala, but chose Joe to represent them against Donald Trump. It's backwards to me. There's just ignorance, and this is on both sides of the aisle, both bases, and it's just sad to see. It's really disheartening.
Yeah, man. I mean, I everything you just said, I second it. I mean, I can't really argue with anything that you said. I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, obviously, if you follow politics enough, you can read between the lines. There was these folks that, and I'm talking to our fellow progressives here, these folks that, con themselves into believing that somehow, a Karen Bass or, a Tammy Duckworth or even Elizabeth Warren. I know you and I both have our issues with Elizabeth Warren. That being said, she would have been a much better pick. This delusion that Absolutely. Joe Biden was going to pick Elizabeth Warren, it's just delusional. We just know this is a campaign and a candidate that has just shown a complete and utter, he just doesn't care about the left. He's shown contempt for them, if anything. He doesn't respect them at all. And this pick just adds to that. I mean, she's and I think the problem with Kamala Harris is that she's just a shapeshifter. She just has no core constitutional points or principles that define her. Like, what does she stand for? What's her core principle? Can you honestly name a core principle that Kamala Harris is for? No.
Honestly, I can't. But what I can name is her consistently siding with police officers and the rule of law.
Well, she's a cop. Like,
that's what I'm saying. If there's one thing you can point to, it's the fact it's everything that we're fighting against.
Right. Which is even that is just mind-boggling that no one actually thought that.
And we're supposed to celebrate her. Come on.
Yeah, picking this woman who literally benefited off the system in place of, disproportionately locking up Black people, tearing up Black homes, this police state that we live in, right? This the tough on crime, she benefited off of that. She benefited off of it. And she's
helped
never
others.
Right. And helped others benefit of it and never has had an answer. Never has had even a good, and she can't have an answer for it because it's her reason for coming into politics is off the back of that record, is off the back of the things that she did as a prosecutor in California. Like, she came to fame off of that. So of course she has no answer for that, because it would be like her saying, well, I really shouldn't be here, because she didn't rise to power in politics for any other reason besides her record.
Right.
That's that tougher crime political view that she has. So yeah, man. I'm just numb to it now. Like, I'm not going to say this. I was angered, but I wasn't even that angry about it anymore. I was just like, I'm just over it. Like, I'm just
it was expected. It was expected. Yeah, it was expected. Because he had to pick a Black woman because of he had to pick a woman because he said he was going to pick a woman. I think, I think liberals and people on the left, if there's one thing that we are guilty of, I don't think we are as progressives, real progressives, but the left in general, I think one thing that the left is guilty of, and Democrats in general, they love symbolism.
It's identity signaling. They love identity politics. They love identity politics.
Oh, he picked a woman. Oh, he picked a Black woman. What? Like,
no trying to figure out their actual core principles or what makes them the person that they are. Oh, hey, she's Black, so hey, look at that, look at us. Pat ourselves on the back. It's just as a person of color, it's insulting. It's insulting because it's like it's
same.
Right. It's this. Look at this. We have a Black friend and they like us and we like them, and
that is exactly what it is.
Right. It's it's just so disconcerting. It's because it's like, I've had people that have gone through I have friends of mine who have gone through the criminal justice system, and now I've never heard one of my friends for things that they deserve. I'm not making any whatever, but I've never heard any friend of mine that went through the criminal justice system that said, you know what, I feel like I got screwed, but at least I was happy I had a black judge. No one has said that. Like, no one has said that. Like, I got beat up by the police, but at least it was a brother. Like, no, no, who cares? Like, just this identity politics. Look, I think representation is important. Obviously, representation is important and it's key. But just like anything else, just like any other symbolic gesture, it can be misconstrued. And representation for the sake of tokenism is the problem. And that's what the Democratic Party has fallen under that spell for decades now. It's just representation for tokenism and not representation because you actually feel like this candidate is the right candidate. Like me, I voted for a 77-year-old white Jewish man from Brooklyn.
So did I.
Why? Because he was the best candidate that spoke to the issues that were important to me. I didn't vote for Cory Booker because he was black and I'm from New York. I didn't vote for Kamala Harris because she was black. I didn't vote for, Juan Castro, because he's Hispanic like I am. Like I didn't vote for these individuals because of the identity of them. Of course, if they had the principles that I want in a politician and cared about the issues that I cared about, and they have the representation, of course it'd be a home run, right? But that's not everything. And they just and it's insulting because they look at all of us, and I say us, the base, as like we're all a monolith, right? Like, oh, if we just wave some black woman out here, they're all just going to fall in line. They're all going to fall all over themselves.
And that's the problem with the Democratic Party. We talk identity politics, but it's very easy for the Republican Party to play identity politics because you're literally only paying to like one or two identities.
Right.
You're playing to white men, basically, and their wives and Christians. That's the whole Republican Party. But when it comes to the Democratic Party, you have people like you and I. I'm Puerto Rican. You're half black, right? You're half black, half Spanish.
I'm Afro-Latino. I'm Panamanian. Panamanian. I'm full Panamanian, but I'm Afro-Latino. So I get the both.
Latino, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, women, white women, Spanish women, black women. Like you have the whole Democratic base is the opposite of a monolith, and the Democratic Party continues to try to pander to the base as a monolith. And it's also interesting because I'm a progressive, you're a progressive, and I don't know how you feel, but I don't really consider myself a Democrat. Yeah, I'll vote Democrat, but I vote Democrat because it's like, there's no way in hell I'm voting for those guys. Like, there's no way in hell I'm voting for the other side. I'm voting for you guys just because I don't feel like you're going to chop my freaking head off with your policies. But and with a two-party system, that's just enough for them to get our votes. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what they want. But at the end of the day, there has to be some type of reformation. I'm loving that the squad is in Congress now. You have AOC, you have Rashida Tlaib, you have Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush now. Shout out to her.
Yeah, shout out to her.
And I think it's
Jamal Bowman.
Jamal Bowman, who lives like 10 minutes from where I went to high school, which is pretty dope.
Yep.
So we have a very young, progressive, and diverse group coming up. Hopefully, they are able to take over the party in about maybe 2 terms, hopefully. But what worries me is that if Biden gets elected, then Kamala's the next in line. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like, how do we?
Well, he's basically said that.
How do we wedge our way in there? We got to wedge our way in there somehow because at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to be satisfied with the Joe Biden presidency. We're just going to continue to contend with it.
And I think that the one of the things that doesn't get talked about enough. I think that Kamala basically being anointed as the next coming, right? So she's essentially going to be the candidate in 2024, right? Barring obviously health, the world doesn't blow up, and Joe Biden decides, oh, sorry, gotcha, I'm going to actually run for re-election. All right, Kamala Harris will be the face of the ticket, right? That's going to be a problem because she didn't do particularly well as a candidate when she ran this time. Now, obviously, she's going to have the incumbency and 4 years of experience that you just can't buy, right? But she's going to have to answer for a lot of the issues in the administration, popular and negative. And that's going to be a challenge. And I think that the progressive wing of the party is gaining more power by the day. The last time we talked politics, I had lost hope. I think both of us kind of had lost hope. But these primaries have given me hope. I feel like there's a storm brewing. I feel like there's a revolution coming. It's slow. It's not at the speed that we'd like it to be. But I think the elections of Jamal Bowman, of Cori Bush, of my man whose his name is just is escaping me right now, that almost won the primary in Kentucky to challenge McConnell. I forget his name. He's escaping me. I apologize. I feel like all of these progressive victories that have been coming up over the summer, I think it's given me hope. I think that there is a storm brewing here. I think that the more and more unrest that we have in this country, the more, just angst and just doubt about the future. I mean, the massive levels of unemployment, 40 million people unemployed, people without health care. COVID numbers are still at best stagnant. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like people are just fed up with the system, and I think they're seeing it. I think they're living it. And yes, obviously from the presidential level, you probably don't agree, but I think there's a storm brewing. And I think that in 2024, if this still doesn't improve and we're still dealing with the ramifications, because this is going to be a 4-year thing. This is not going to be like COVID is going to have an impact long after the pandemic is done, right? Like the reconstruction, so to speak, of everything after the pandemic, like it's going to be a 4 to 5 year thing. So I think that both parties are going to have to answer for their role in this. And do you really trust Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to have those answers as well?
No, and I think that's what's the most frustrating thing. It's like, even before the pandemic hit, we were facing a lot of these questions with healthcare and a lot of these questions with income inequality. And it's like, what answers did Joe Biden give for the Democratic base to believe that? And that's the frustrating thing. Like, I don't understand why. And it was older Democrats, like why you went to the primary booth and voted for this guy. Like, how could you just be so thrown off by a Bernie Sanders who wants healthcare for everybody? It's just, these are basic, simple things that every other first world country in the world has. This isn't radical. It's the media and
Obama, bro. It was the media and Obama. Yeah. It was essentially what handed Joe Biden the primary.
I was saying Bernie was running against an Obama hologram. Like, literally, Joe Biden is Obama's hologram. That's right. What it feels like.
And the problem, the issue with Joe Biden, right, is that they made Joe Biden, this existential candidate, right, where it's like, it's not even about Joe Biden. It's about Donald Trump. You got to beat Trump. You got to beat Trump. It doesn't matter what policies he's bringing into place. It doesn't matter what Joe Biden is saying or not saying. It's about beating Trump. He's not Trump. He's not Trump. And when you make something existential, you tend to kind of ignore the other things that normally would apply in a normal setting, right? Like when you make everything about, hey, we got to beat Trump, you'll ignore a rape allegation. When it's hey, we got to beat Trump, you'll ignore racist undertones in his policies and his.
Then we're not as good as the Republican voters who we claim are racist. We're not.
Absolutely not.
It's not.
Absolutely not. And I've said that. I'm like, we're no different. We're no different than the Trump supporter that ignored racism and wasn't thrown off by it because it was existential to their views. Like, politics is about existential, and when people go to their ballots and cast their votes, it's about their views and how hardcore they believe in their views. And if racism wasn't a deal breaker for you, if Joe Biden, and look, I'm not trying to equate from a moral standpoint Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Obviously, Donald Trump is repulsive, and Joe Biden is.
It's different levels to it, for sure.
There's different levels of it. I mean, I think as a human being, Joe Biden is a better human being than Donald Trump. I don't think anybody would even argue that at this point, even the most far left person. That being said, don't tell me that Joe Biden is this perfect candidate or even just like this semi-flawed candidate. No, he's a flawed candidate. He's a flawed candidate, and he's always been a flawed candidate.
And he's nothing. That's the thing. It's like we spend all this time.
He's an empty suit.
He's an empty suit, but we spend all this time calling Trump racist, calling Trump sexist and misogynist, and I think we're right about all of that. I think we hit it right on the head, and I don't think every Republican's racist. I think there are good Republicans out there. I think there are good conservatives out there who just, at the end of the day, they don't like the liberal platform. They see the world differently, and they vote for the Republican Party, and that's the way it is. But at the same time, I don't think it's a coincidence that a racist psychopath conspiracy theorist was able to win the hearts of most of the Republican base. That's what they spew. Now, for us to go and nominate a guy who has sprinkles of each, you know what I mean, as our guy,
little sprinkles,
yeah.
little sprinkles.
Salt. He's a salt bay of of this. It makes our side look like complete and utter hypocrites, and it makes the Black Lives Matter look like we're a bunch of hypocrites, and it makes the Me Too movement look like we're a bunch of hypocrites. And at the end of the day, I mean, I personally don't think I'm a hypocrite, but I can't fault someone from the right or Republican being like, well, you called Trump racist, you called Trump sexist, but you're going to go to the booth and vote for Joe Biden.
Absolutely.
Like, I have to explain myself like, well, he's a lesser of two evils, and we only have two options in this country, and I think that, you know, it's just harm reduction. Well, they can say the same exact thing. And I am mad at the Democratic Party for even putting me in that position more than I'm mad at myself for even going to the booth for voting for Joe Biden. Because I honestly do believe I am doing harm reduction, but I can't fault the person down the road from me who thinks they're doing harm reduction by voting for Trump.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you said it eloquently. I mean, it's perfect. I mean, we're no different. And that's the problem with the two-party system, that there is no real discernible difference between the parties at this point, and even a lot of the base. I mean, the people. I mean, it's just disgusting how so many people with the Tara Reade allegations. And look, I don't know if Joe Biden did it or not, right? But the fact that so many liberals turned a blind eye to Tara Reade, and these same people that were willing to castrate Brett Kavanaugh for literally the same thing. And I can make the argument that Brett Kavanaugh's accusations were a lot less flimsy than Tara Reade's. Like, yeah, who are we? Who are we? We're no different. But again, it goes to that point of making things existential. When you make a vote, an election existential, you know, basically ride or die. When you make that the premise, you tend to kind of throw away all these natural conventions that you would have had in a normal election or in a normal political system, and you throws it out the window, and it just becomes about, well, he's just not that guy. Well, and that's the problem. And look, and here's my thing, and people will get pissed off with me, like, we've lived through 4 years of Donald Trump. Are we dead? Like, can we honestly say that COVID wouldn't have happened with Hillary Clinton as president? Of course.
It would have happened.
Of course. Like, this idea that Donald Trump has created all of the issues that we have going on right now. Like, the kids in cages. Donald Trump's immigration policy is just more extreme. But we had a shitty immigration policy to begin with. Like, it's not like we were just a perfect we weren't this like perfect hotbed of immigration, and all of a sudden Donald Trump came in and ruined everything. No, we had a shitty immigration policy to begin with. He's made it worse. I would agree with you. He's made it much worse. But we've lived through
foreign policy.
Foreign policy, like bombing shit out of the countries. Donald Trump is still doing that. We're still signing $800 billion over to the military-industrial complex. Joe Biden would have still done that. Hillary Clinton would have done that too. Like,
Hillary absolutely would have done that.
Where are we different? Oh, Donald Trump treats the reporters bad. Oh, Donald Trump is a racist. He's not the first. Sorry, Joe Biden. He's not the first racist president. We've had out of 45 of them, we've had 40 of them that were racist? Like, maybe.
Right.
Like, this idea that we're so like, oh my God, the children are watching, and oh my God, we have to restore the norms. The norms, like what norms? The same shit that we're doing now. Donald Trump is just the drunk uncle that just says everything out in the open. He says the quiet part out loud.
He's just exposed the country for what it is. That's really what he's done. That's all he's really done. But like I go back to the Democratic base. It just frustrates me that we see what's going on. Children in cages, immigration system, bombing overseas, healthcare system's a mess. Let's go with this guy. It's like if, you know how the Seahawks didn't run the ball with Marshawn Lynch at the 2-yard line?
Yeah.
It's like if they made the Super Bowl the next year and they ran the same fucking play from the 2.
And
against the same defense.
And same results.
It's like, all right, well, now I'm expecting the same result. Like, how do you expect Joe Biden to go against Donald Trump when that didn't even work the first time around? A corporate down the middle Democrat. The only thing that's different now is that we have a pandemic going, and that actually might have saved Joe Biden's ass, because if it wasn't for that,
it did.
I mean,
it did. And I still think Trump's going to win. I think Trump's going to win.
Do you?
I do.
I
think his Trump's poll numbers are always underrepresented. And that's what worries me.
Kicked, though, man.
Yeah, but everything they're showing is the national polls and in the state levels, even in the swing states, he's still close. He's still close in Florida. It's still
he's losing.
He's losing, but I just, to me, I still think there's enough time for Joe Biden to fumble the bag and blow a 28-3 lead. And I just think, and also I think that the Kamala Harris pick might have an opposite effect.
It was a first interception. But get this, right? I think that now Trump and Trump's campaign has a perfect foil, because we know that they love attacking women and they love attacking black people. So now they have the perfect foil in that, like, they struggled in the messaging against Joe Biden because Joe Biden doesn't have that visceral hate that Hillary Clinton does. But now you have a woman and a woman of color. So now they can kind of spew the same xenophobic hate stuff that they've always done and just go off with it. So I think I think Trump is still very much got it still within striking distance. And after everything that's gone on and we're basically he should be on 20. Yeah, he should be on 20 and everything. So I'm looking at the Real Clear Politics polls right now. Wisconsin, Biden plus 6.5, Minnesota plus 7, Biden. North Carolina, Trump's up 0.5, but Florida, Biden plus 5, Pennsylvania, Biden plus 6.5. I mean, that's every swing state. Biden's up. Michigan, Biden plus 6.7. Ohio, Biden plus 2.3. That's a good sign for Biden. I get that. But I think if there's one thing I got to say about that strategy that you just said, it's almost laughable, right? When Charlie Kirk yesterday tweeted that Kamala Harris is a Marxist. like really, even when Trump goes on Fox News and says that Biden's radical left, that Kamala's radical left, after a while, I think those type of criticisms fall on deaf ears, because it's kind of like, are you like really, like, we know who the far left guy in the Democratic wing was, and that was Bernie Sanders. And honestly, to you and I, he's not far left. I don't think he's far left at all, but to the country, he is. No. And
I don't even think the country believes that. I don't even think the Republican base believes that. Like, I really don't.
They do. They absolutely do. That's where I disagree with you.
They're more moronic than they look.
I think the Republican base literally associates Bernie Sanders with the cuss word of socialism. And if we go socialist, that we're going to just, the country is over. That's how I think. And Marxism is a word that I don't even think anybody can really define on the right. Yet they love using it because it sounds chaotic. And I think that strategy might backfire, because I think it's very obvious when people are trying to be trolls. And I think the Republicans do it so much that using terms like Marxist and saying that Biden and Kamala are these far left policymakers, it's such a joke that I think it might turn off some independent voters. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I do think there are a lot of people more turned off by Donald Trump than you think are. There are a lot of independent voters or Democratic voters took a chance on Trump because they didn't like Hillary Clinton and just say, let's see let's see what happens with Trump. I think a lot of those voters are very level-headed, and I think a lot of them are going to vote against him or just not vote at all. If I had to choose today, I'm going. I think Biden wins today, but like you said, I could see him blowing a 28-3 lead. We'll
end with this, right? Because my daughter's tapping me now. It's time apparently. We'll end with this. We'll end with this, right? I hear everything that you're saying. That being said, to me, I'm always worried about Trump's poll numbers, because I think his base is massively underrepresented, especially in these polls. I mean, we learned that from 2016. And I still don't trust Joe Biden. And the problem that gives me caution with Joe Biden is that Joe Biden has still not offered a message to America. This is a big week for Joe Biden. This is a big week for Joe Biden. This is a big week for the Democrats. I know that it's going to be a virtual it's basically going to be a big ass infomercial from Monday to Thursday. I mean, when isn't it ever anyway? But it's going to be a big week. And I think that if they don't get their messaging right, if they don't offer America and Americans a clear path to getting better, I think they're going to fumble the bag. And I still think they're going to fumble the bag. And
you can only hide for so long. The whole strategy has been hide Biden, but after a while, you have to propose something.
That's exactly. Yeah. All right, man. As always, pleasure.
It's been real, man. Thanks for having me on.
It's always real. Always magic when we do these things. Before you go, man, plug your podcast, plug everything you got going on, man.
Yeah, man, The Dime with Josh Rodriguez. Search it on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. The Dime with Josh Rodriguez. Listen to it. It's an NBA podcast. I'm going to be doing 2 a week now that the NBA playoffs are starting. Man, you got to get you on, man, because you got to.
You know me, I'm down, man.
You got to gloat about you being right about the Celtics and me being wrong about the Sixers after it happens. So just check that out right now. Working on at Uninterrupted, Breanna Stewart's podcast, Stewie's World, will be dropping next week. So check that out if you're a WNBA fan. And look out for 17 Weeks, which is a podcast that documents 3 football players going through their season. Can't really say who those football players are just yet, but just look out for it and stay tuned. Hopefully we have a football season.
Yeah, let's hope, right? That's another discussion for another podcast, of course, as always. Man, thank you for being on the show as always, man. Bless you. Always, I consider you a friend, a brother, a podcast brother. And
absolutely, man.
Definitely, man. Love having you on, man. You guys always go check out the Dime NBA podcast. I'll be on there soon. Also check out all his work that he does on the Uninterrupted. Great guy. Follow him on Twitter if you haven't done so already. For you guys, the listeners, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. You guys know the deal. You guys know where to follow me. You guys know listen and follow every week. But if you don't, if you're new to the show, at DManuel Brown on Twitter, at DManuel Brown on Instagram, MannyBro15 on Snapchat. The show, of course, AGS Pod on Twitter, AGS Podcast on Instagram. Make sure you check us out. Leave us a review on iTunes as well. That's important. We had a little rant about that earlier. Make sure you go leave us a review on iTunes, man. It's important. It is important. Yeah, man. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the podcast. We'll be back next week with another episode of the podcast as my daughter's crying in the background. I think I feel her sentiments. It's time to go, but I'm still hot too, so I might have to just jump in the shower and just sit in cold water for a minute. And
get it, man. Do what you gotta do.
Man. Wash my excitement of Kamala Harris away. Yeah, man. We'll get up out of here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. We are out of here. Peace.